I was gonna get in there and do the best I could. That's what I thought.
Well, both of you guys were undefeated at that point.
Every fighter dreams of leaving the ring on their own terms. Michael Spinks never got that chance. One night ended it all, and at 69, he's still living with the echoes of that decision. But to understand why Michael walked away from boxing so early, we need to go back to the night that changed everything for an undefeated champion. The fall after the final bell. When people talk about unforgettable moments in boxing, they usually think of shocking upsets, surprise victories, and nights when an underdog defies all expectations. However, for Michael Spinks, one of the top fighters of his era, the moment that shocked the world was not a victory. Instead, it was the sudden and brutal way his undefeated record came to an end in a fight that lasted less than 2 minutes, but would change his life forever. Yeah, you heard right. The showdown took place on June 27, 1988, in Atlantic City. Michael entered the ring with a perfect record of 31 wins and no losses. He carried the confidence of a man who had conquered nearly every challenge in boxing. He was the lineal heavyweight champion, having defeated Larry Holmes in 1985 and defended his title in a rematch. Although he had been stripped of the IBF belt for refusing to fight Tony Tucker, many still considered him the true champion because he had never been defeated in the ring. Across from him stood Mike Tyson, holding the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles after unifying them through HBO's Heavyweight World Series. Tyson's record was 34-0 with 30 knockouts, and his reputation for ending fights in the first round had made him the most feared man in boxing. Tyson's speed, power, and aggression had overwhelmed every opponent he had faced. By the late 80s, he was more than a champion. He was a cultural force, a boxer who carried an aura of invincibility into every fight. Also, this fight was about more than belts or money. Both men were undefeated, and each had a strong claim to the heavyweight throne. The bout was billed as Once and for All, a name that reflected the desire to settle the debate. Who was the real heavyweight champion of the world? The stakes were enormous too. Tyson earned a record-breaking $22 million, while Michael took home $13,500,000, making it the richest fight in boxing history at the time. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at Convention Hall in Atlantic City was electric. Celebrities like Muhammad Ali, Jack Nicholson, and Madonna filled the seats. Millions of fans around the world tuned in, expecting a long, strategic battle between Tyson's raw power and Michael's tactical skill. After all, Michael had made history by becoming the first reigning light heavyweight champion to win a heavyweight title. He had outsmarted bigger men before, so many expected him to do it again. But from the moment the bell rang, it was clear this fight would not go according to plan. Tyson came forward like a force of nature, fast, relentless, and precise. Michael, usually calm and methodical, appeared tense. His footwork hesitated, his timing faltered, and the pressure from Tyson left him scrambling. Just 91 seconds into the first round, Tyson landed a brutal right hand to Michael's body, followed by a left uppercut. Michael went down. He tried to rise, only to be met with a devastating right-left combination that sent him crashing to the canvas again. This time, he stayed down, and just like that, Tyson defeated Michael. Fans had expected a long, back-and-forth battle, maybe even a fight that would test both men to the limit. Instead, what happened was shocking and almost unbelievable. Commentators froze, the crowd fell silent, and the sight of Michael lying on the canvas while Tyson loomed above him became one of boxing's most unforgettable images. It was more than a loss. It was as if years of undefeated glory had been wiped away in an instant. Michael, who had never been knocked down before, had been completely overwhelmed in less than 2 minutes. Here's the part that still baffles boxing fans today. At 31 years old, Michael announced his retirement just weeks after that fight. Unlike so many champions who come back for one last chance at fame, he simply walked away and never looked back. To some, it seemed like a smart choice, sparing himself the kind of punishing decline that has ended the careers of countless great fighters. But to others, it felt unfinished. This was a man who had defeated Larry Holmes twice, ruled the light heavyweight division, and shocked the world by moving up to heavyweight, only to be flattened in a single night and never try to reclaim what was lost. Even as Michael tried to move on from the ring, the shadow of that night never fully faded. Fans and commentators remembered the 91-second defeat more vividly than his wins over Larry Holmes or his groundbreaking rise to heavyweight glory. It created a tension between what he had actually achieved and how the world chose to remember him. Michael had accomplished what no other light heavyweight had ever done. But strangely, the final chapter of his career became the one that defined him most. Sadly, it became the lens through which his entire legacy would be seen. But to truly understand Michael's journey, we have to go back to the streets of St. Louis, where a young boy first felt the spark that would one day turn him into a champion. Before the world knew Michael Spinks as Jinx, he was just a boy growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, a city shaped by poverty and survival. Born on July 13, 1956, Michael's childhood was marked by hardship. His father passed away when he was young, leaving his mother, Kay, to raise the family on her own. For young Michael, boxing was never just a sport. It was a way out, a chance to turn his energy into something meaningful. Inspired by his older brother, Leon Spinks, who had already found purpose in the boxing gym, Michael stepped inside the ring and discovered his path. From that moment, the brothers became a dynamic duo, each pushing the other to greater heights. For Michael, the boxing gym became more than a place to train. It gave him structure and belonging at a time when life felt uncertain. Coaches quickly noticed his natural gifts. He was tall, with long arms and sharp reflexes, but what made him stand out was his patience. Michael did not rush. Instead, he studied. He learned. And he understood early on that boxing was as much about the mind as it was about strength. And by the time Michael reached his teenage years, his talent was undeniable, but he was never the type to show off. He was calm and very reserved, which was very different from his older brother Leon, who seemed to light up every room he entered. Leon was fiery, charismatic, and thrived in the spotlight, while Michael stayed quietly in the background, working steadily and waiting for his moment. This difference defined them. Leon grabbed the headlines, but Michael earned a reputation as the brother who let his actions in the ring speak for him. As Michael entered local tournaments, his patience and hard work began to show. He quickly gained attention because of his unique approach in the ring. He wasn't just a hard puncher, and he wasn't only quick on his feet. Instead, he blended smart, precise attacks with strong defense, making it nearly impossible for opponents to figure him out. This style frustrated many fighters and earned him a reputation as someone unpredictable and dangerous. Michael's right hand was very strong and precise. His punches didn't look fast, but it could knock an opponent out in a single hit. This is why he got the nickname, the Jinx. The name doesn't come from being lucky. It came from his powerful right hand, called the Spinks Jinx, which could end fights almost immediately. By the mid-1970s, Michael was no longer just a promising young fighter. He joined the United States Olympic team, which gave him the chance to test his skills against the best in the world. However, the real breakthrough came in 1976 at the Montreal Olympics. That summer, Michael moved through the middleweight division with a mix of patience, timing, and smart punching that left everyone watching stunned. He won the gold medal. Interestingly, his older brother Leon also won gold in the heavyweight division. Yeah, you heard right. 2 brothers, 2 gold medals. It was indeed a historic achievement that put the Spinks family in the headlines and made the boxing world take notice. But do you think Michael's calm and calculated approach will be enough in professional boxing? Let's dive deeper. By the early 1980s, Michael had become a force to be reckoned with in the light heavyweight division. He took on the best fighters available and defeated them one by one. By 1983, he had collected the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles, unifying them to become the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. His dominance was clear. He didn't just win fights, he dismantled opponents who had never known defeat before. Soon, the boxing world could no longer see him as just Leon's younger brother. He had carved out his own path and proven he was a champion in his own right. However, Michael did not stop there. He knew he was destined for greatness. Having proven himself as the undisputed light heavyweight champion, he was ready for a challenge that few fighters dared to take on, moving up to the heavyweight division. His target was the man who had ruled that division for 7 years, Larry Holmes. Holmes had fought 48 times and won every single match, putting him just 1 victory away from tying Rocky Marciano's legendary record of 49 wins without a loss. His jab was feared by every opponent and considered one of the most effective in boxing history. Many doubted that Michael, moving up from light heavyweight with a smaller frame and lighter punches, could stand a chance against the reigning champion. Meanwhile, Michael saw his chance to make history, and in September 1985, he took it. He entered the ring against Larry Holmes as the clear underdog, the smaller man with everything to prove. But once the fight began, Michael refused to play that role. He moved with sharp footwork, threw quick combinations, and kept Holmes off balance with feints and unexpected bursts. Round after round, he frustrated the champion, absorbing the heavier punches while steadily building control. After 15 exhausting rounds, the judges gave their verdict. Against all odds, Michael had done the impossible. He became the first reigning light heavyweight champion ever to step up and win the heavyweight title. In one night, boxing history was rewritten. Larry Holmes was not the type of champion to accept defeat easily. Determined to reclaim his crown, he demanded a rematch. In 1986, the 2 men faced off again. Holmes came out swinging, trying to dominate from the opening bell, but Michael stayed calm, using his unusual rhythm and tactical intelligence to stay in the fight. The bout was razor close, keeping fans on the edge of their seats. One judge scored the fight for Holmes, but the other 2 gave it to Michael. That split decision was enough to hand him the victory. In doing so, Michael achieved something extraordinary. He had defeated Larry Holmes not once, but twice, cementing his reputation as a fighter who could outsmart even the most formidable opponents. Now you can understand why Michael is remembered as a legend. At his peak, he was untouchable, but in boxing, the higher a fighter rises, the more devastating the fall can be. How does a man who once ruled the boxing world, earning millions and respect, end up crushed by losses and struggling just to survive? For all the fame Michael Spinks earned inside the ring, his toughest battles were never fought under bright lights. They were fought in silence, behind closed doors, and they left scars no championship belt could ever heal. His later years tell a story not just of triumph, but of loss and struggle. It was not the life most imagined for a man who had once seemed untouchable in the ring. The first devastating blow did not come from an opponent, but from life itself. In 1983, just as Michael's career was taking off, his wife, Sandy Massey, passed away unexpectedly. To the public, Michael still appeared calm, disciplined, and in control, the same fighter who had conquered every challenge in the ring. But away from the spotlight, the pain from the loss crushed him. He was only 27 years old, with a young daughter left in his care. Those close to him recalled how he buried himself in boxing, not just to keep going, but because it was the only way he knew how to care for his daughter and keep himself from falling apart. But emotional loss was just the beginning of Michael's woes. There were more to come. By the time he retired in 1988, he had earned around $24 million, an enormous sum for that era. However, behind that picture of success, the reality was far less stable than anyone could imagine. A large part of Michael's money had been managed by his longtime promoter and close friend, Butch Lewis. For years, Lewis was more than a business partner. He was someone Michael trusted completely. But when Lewis passed away in 2011, problems began to appear. Michael later filed a lawsuit against Lewis's estate, saying that millions of his earnings had been mismanaged. On top of that, his health insurance had lapsed, leaving him with huge medical bills. At one point, his healthcare costs were reported to be nearly $50,000 a month. To cover the expenses, he had to use his retirement savings, which brought extra penalties and quickly drained the money he had worked so hard to save. The lawsuits went on for years, long and very draining. Michael had to give statements in court and interviews, but he often seemed tired and unsure, as if the stress was taking a toll on him. Later on, he admitted he couldn't even remember exactly how the case ended. For a man who had once been known for his focus and discipline, this confusion was especially sad. With the lawsuit and other matters, it would come as no surprise the public were very much interested in his affairs, but Michael kept his life simple and mostly private, far away from the spotlight. Since 1985, he had lived in a secluded home in Wilmington, Delaware, bought for $316,000. Today, that house is worth between $1.5 to $2 million. It is a lot of money, but not the kind of fortune many would expect from a former heavyweight champion. For some, it showed just how quickly boxing money can disappear, and that wealth in the sport is never guaranteed. But his struggles didn't stop there. Just when it seemed money was the only challenge, rumors began to spread about his declining health. Some friends allegedly noticed memory lapses, moments of confusion, and a fading sharpness that hadn't been there before. Although Michael never publicly confirmed any diagnosis, many suspected he was dealing with the long-term effects of the punches he had taken in the ring, possibly even chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a condition that has affected many boxers over the years. The most shocking part of Michael's life after boxing was how isolated he became. Unlike his brother Leon, whose struggles were out in the open, Michael quietly stepped away from the spotlight. Neighbors in Delaware described him as calm and private, someone who kept mostly to himself. For a man who once headlined some of the biggest fights in history, his sudden disappearance from the public eye was hard to ignore. Michael's disappearance showed the reality many athletes face when the lights go out. Without the roar of the crowd or the daily grind of training and fights, life can feel empty. Unlike other former champions who found new ways to stay in the public eye, like Tyson with his comeback tours, Foreman with his grill, and Holyfield with his appearances, Michael gradually withdrew from the spotlight. He was not the flashy ex-champion enjoying attention. he became the quiet one, the man fans talked about in hushed tones, wondering what had truly happened to him. Michael's personal life was always shaped by quiet battles, the kind that never made headlines but stayed with him. He carried grief, responsibility, and the pressure of being the Spinks brother who always had to prove himself. Even at the height of his career, those private struggles lingered, influencing how the world saw him and, more importantly, how he saw himself. And this is where his story takes an unexpected turn. While Michael built one of the most flawless records in boxing history, his legacy did not echo with the same force. Instead, it slipped into the background, overshadowed in ways that still puzzle fans today. Losing millions and growing older were painful, but what cut the deepest was being forgotten. At 69, this is what makes Michael Spinks' story feel so heartbreaking. Legacy overshadowed by silence. When most people think of boxing legends, names like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, George Foreman, and Larry Holmes come to mind. Michael Spinks rarely gets mentioned alongside them, and that is truly surprising because his accomplishments demand attention. He was the first light heavyweight champion ever to move up and claim the heavyweight crown, a feat no one else has matched. And let's be clear, it was not luck, and it was not a fluke. Michael's dominance came from skill, discipline, and an unshakable determination that made him a fighter unlike any other in his era. In 1994, the boxing world officially recognized him, inducting Michael into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. This plaque secured his place among boxing legends. It was proof that his dominance in two divisions, even if brief at heavyweight, could never truly be erased. But surprisingly, even with the ceremony, the speeches, and the cameras flashing, something felt off. Michael never chased the spotlight the way other champions did, and over time, his name slowly faded from the conversations that define boxing history. Today, Michael has mostly stepped away from the sport entirely. He rarely attends big fights, doesn't weigh in on the latest heavyweight drama, and rarely offers commentary. It's as if he closed that chapter of his life for good. He walked away quietly, leaving fans to wonder what really went on behind the scenes and what he might have felt stepping out of the ring for the final time. But let's not be deceived by silence. When you strip away the flash, the promotion, and the hype, Michael's record speaks for itself. 31 wins, only one loss, and a career that spanned divisions and defied expectations. From Olympic gold in 1976 to heavyweight champion in 1985, it's clear his rise was historic. Honestly, only a few boxers have combined humility outside the ring with ferocity inside it the way he did. That silent strength, that ability to let his fists do the talking, is part of what made him so unforgettable. Now, at 69, Michael's story is far more complicated than we've realized. Away from the bright lights and the cameras, life has not been easy. Health challenges and financial struggles have dulled the shine that once surrounded his name. For younger boxing fans, he might be remembered only as the man Tyson knocked out in 91 seconds. And this, perhaps, is the harshest twist of all. It's not just the struggles or the private life he now leads, but how history has allowed that single moment to overshadow years of brilliance in the ring. But this is where we, the fans, get to set the record straight. Michael Spinks should not be remembered only for those 91 seconds in Atlantic City. He deserves credit for the years of brilliance, the historic victories, and the challenges he overcame along the way. His resilience, his focus, and his unwavering strength are just as much a part of his story as any championship belt he ever held. So here's the lingering thought. How can someone who achieved so much, who redefined what was possible in the ring, be remembered so briefly? We want to know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next video.